The sound of muffled sobbing drifted through the cracks in the barn walls, carrying across the dusty yard of the Larson Ranch on that sweltering July evening in 1883, catching the attention of Zachary Larson as he dismounted from his horse after a long day checking fence lines across his property in the rugged terrain outside Circleville, Utah. Zachary paused, his weathered hands still gripping the reins, listening intently to determine if his ears had deceived him in the fading light. The sound came again, unmistakable this time, a woman's quiet weeping from inside his barn. His jaw tightened as he looped the reins around the hitching post and moved cautiously toward the structure, his boots crunching softly on the dry earth. At 26 years old, Zachary had learned to be careful about unexpected visitors, especially ones who hid in barns at dusk. The barn door creaked as he pulled it open, revealing the interior bathed in golden evening light that streamed through gaps in the weathered wood. The smell of hay and horses filled his nostrils as his eyes adjusted to the dimmer interior. There, huddled in the corner near the empty stalls, sat a young woman with her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Her dark traveling dress was covered in dust, and her auburn hair had come loose from its pins, cascading around her face in disheveled waves. "Madam," Zachary said softly, not wanting to startle her further. "Are you all right?" The woman's head snapped up, her eyes wide with fear and red from crying. She looked to be in her early 20s, with delicate features that were currently streaked with tears and dirt. She pressed herself further into the corner, as if trying to disappear into the hay-strewn floor. "Please," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Please don't send me back. I cannot go back there." Zachary held up his hands in a peaceful gesture and took a slow step forward. "Nobody's sending you anywhere, madam. You're on my property, and I just want to know if you need help. Are you hurt?" She shook her head, but fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "No, not physically." He studied her for a moment, noting the quality of her dress despite its current state of disarray, the fine leather of her boots, the delicate gold chain visible at her throat. This was no common traveler. "When did you last eat?" he asked. The question seemed to catch her off guard. She blinked, considering. "Yesterday morning, I think. Maybe the morning before. I am not certain." Zachary nodded slowly. "Well, that's something we can fix right now. The house is just across the yard. I've got stew on the stove, bread from this morning. You look like you could use both." He paused, then added, "And maybe a place to sit that's warmer than hay." She looked at him with confusion. "It is July. Everything is warm." A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, despite the seriousness of the situation. "Then, it's warm where you sit." The unexpected gentleness in his observation seemed to break through some of her fear. She studied his face more carefully now, taking in his sun-weathered features, the kindness in his brown eyes, the genuine concern etched in the lines around his mouth. After a long moment, she nodded slightly. "I am Olivia," she said quietly. "Olivia Durant. Zachary Larson, this is my ranch." He extended his hand to help her up. She hesitated only briefly before placing her trembling hand in his calloused palm. As he pulled her to her feet, he noticed how light she felt, how unsteady. "Easy now. Let's get you inside before you fall over." They crossed the yard slowly, Zachary keeping a respectful distance but staying close enough to catch her if she stumbled. The ranch house was modest but well-maintained, a sturdy structure built to withstand the harsh Utah winters and baking summers. Inside, the main room served as both kitchen and living area, with a stone fireplace dominating one wall and a simple wooden table surrounded by mismatched chairs occupying the center. Zachary guided Olivia to a chair near the table and quickly moved to the stove, where a pot of beef stew had been simmering since morning. He ladled a generous portion into a bowl, cut several thick slices of bread, and set both before her, along with a cup of cool water from the pump. "Go on," he encouraged. "Eat." Olivia picked up the spoon with shaking hands and took a tentative bite. The moment the food touched her tongue, she seemed to realize just how hungry she was. She began eating with more urgency, though she tried to maintain some semblance of propriety. Zachary busied himself with tending to his horse through the window, giving her privacy while she ate, though he kept a watchful eye to ensure she did not make herself sick by eating too quickly. When she had finished the bowl and half the bread, some color had returned to her pale cheeks. She set down her spoon and wrapped her hands around the water cup, staring into its depths as if searching for answers there. "Thank you," she said softly. "You are very kind to a stranger." Zachary pulled out a chair across from her and sat down, resting his forearms on the table. "You want to tell me why you were hiding in my barn? And who you were running from?" Olivia's hands tightened around the cup. For a long moment, she said nothing, and Zachary waited patiently, sensing that pushing would only cause her to retreat. Finally, she took a shaky breath and began to speak. "I am from Salt Lake City," she said. "My father is Charles Durant. He owns the largest freight company in the territory." She paused, gauging Zachary's reaction. He nodded for her to continue, his expression neutral. "3 months ago, my father arranged my engagement to a man named Marcus Pemberton. He is 45 years old, wealthy, and connected to all the right people in the territory. My father believes it to be an excellent match." "But you don't," Zachary observed. "Marcus is cruel," Olivia said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "He hides it well in public, but I have seen glimpses. The way he speaks to servants, to anyone he considers beneath him. The coldness in his eyes when he thinks no one is watching. And She stopped, swallowing hard. "He has made it clear that once we are married, I will have no voice, no freedom, no say in my own life. I will be his possession, nothing more." Zachary felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. "So you ran. 2 days ago, I was supposed to go to the dressmaker for a final fitting of my wedding gown. The ceremony is planned for next month. Instead, I took what money I had hidden away, hired a horse, and rode south. I thought perhaps I could reach one of the settlements in southern Utah, or even Arizona territory, somewhere I could disappear and start fresh." She gave a bitter laugh. "I made it this far before my horse went lame about 5 miles north of here. I walked the rest of the way, and when I saw your barn, I could not go any further. I sat down, and everything overwhelmed me at once." "Your father will be looking for you," Zachary said. It was not a question. "Yes, and Marcus as well. They will have people searching." Her eyes filled with fresh tears. "I know I cannot stay here. I am putting you in danger just by being here. But I just needed a moment to rest, to think, to figure out what to do next." Zachary was quiet for a long moment, his mind working through the situation. He had built this ranch from nothing over the past 5 years, working sunup to sundown to carve out a life for himself in this harsh but beautiful land. He raised cattle, broke horses, and kept largely to himself. The last thing he needed was trouble with wealthy men from Salt Lake City. But as he looked at Olivia's tear-stained face, at the fear and desperation in her green eyes, he knew he could not turn her away. "You can stay here tonight," he said finally. "Sleep in a real bed, get your strength back. Tomorrow we will figure out what comes next." Olivia's eyes widened. "I cannot ask you to risk yourself for me. You do not even know me." "You are not asking. I am offering." He stood and moved toward a door at the back of the main room. "This was my parents' room before they passed. I have been using it for storage mostly, but the bed is still good. I will sleep out here." He disappeared into the room and emerged a moment later with blankets and a pillow. "There's a wash basin in there and clean water in the pitcher. Take whatever time you need." Olivia stood slowly, her legs still unsteady. She looked at Zachary with an expression that held equal parts gratitude and disbelief. "Why are you doing this? You could tell me to leave and be done with this entire mess." Zachary met her gaze steadily. "My mother used to say that how a man treats those who can do nothing for him shows his true character. You needed help, and I have the means to provide it. That is reason enough." Fresh tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks, but these were different from the ones she had cried in the barn. "Thank you, Zachary, truly." He nodded, suddenly feeling awkward. "Get some rest. Morning comes early on a ranch." Olivia retreated into the bedroom and closed the door. Zachary heard the soft sounds of her moving around, the splash of water in the basin. He settled himself on the worn sofa near the fireplace, arranging the blankets, though he doubted he would sleep much. His mind was too full of questions and concerns about what the next days might bring. Morning arrived with the roosters crowing and the first light of dawn painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Zachary had indeed slept poorly, his rest broken by troubling thoughts and the awareness of his unexpected guest. He rose before full light and quietly stoked the fire in the stove, starting coffee and beginning breakfast preparations. He was frying eggs and salt pork when Olivia emerged from the bedroom, looking somewhat more rested though, still fragile. She had washed her face and pinned her hair back more neatly, though her dress was still dusty from her travels. "Good morning," she said softly. "Morning. Sit down. Breakfast is almost ready." Zachary plated the food and poured coffee for both of them. They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes before he spoke again. "I have been thinking about your situation." Olivia set down her fork, her body tensing. "Yes?" "Circleville is small. If anyone comes asking about you, people will talk. Word travels fast in towns like this." He took a sip of his coffee. "But my ranch is about 3 miles outside of town, and I do not have many visitors. If you stay here, keep out of sight when I have business with folks, there is a chance no one would know you are here." "You are suggesting I stay longer?" Olivia asked, her voice uncertain. "I am suggesting that maybe you do not have to run all the way to Arizona territory to disappear. Maybe you just need time for things to settle, for your father and Pemberton to exhaust their immediate searches. Then you can make decisions with a clearer head and better planning." Olivia studied him carefully. "And what would I do here? I cannot simply hide in your house like some fugitive. This ranch requires more work than one man can properly handle. The house could use a woman's touch, if you will pardon me saying so. I am no hand at cooking anything beyond the basics, and the vegetable garden my mother planted years ago has gone to seed." He met her eyes. "I am not suggesting charity, Olivia. If you stay, you would be working for your keep, but you would be safe, at least for a while." She was quiet for a long time, turning her coffee cup in her hands. "You barely know me. For all you know, I could be lying about everything. I could be a thief or worse." "Could be," Zachary agreed. "But I do not think you are. I have always trusted my gut about people, and my gut says you are telling the truth. And if my father's men come here, then we will deal with that if it happens. But I am not in the habit of forcing people to go where they do not want to go." Olivia's eyes shone with emotion. "I do not know how to repay such kindness. Like I said, help around the ranch. That is payment enough." He stood and carried his empty plate to the wash basin. "I have work to do this morning, cattle to check, horses to tend. You rest today, get your bearings. Tomorrow you can start earning your keep if you decide to stay." "I will stay," Olivia said immediately. "At least for a while, if you truly mean it." "I mean it." And so began an arrangement that would change both their lives in ways neither could have anticipated. Olivia threw herself into work around the ranch with an intensity that surprised Zachary. She cleaned the house from top to bottom, organized his chaotic food stores, and resurrected the vegetable garden with determination and care. She mended his worn clothes, cooked proper meals, and began learning the rhythms of ranch life. For his part, Zachary found himself enjoying the company more than he wanted to admit. After 5 years of solitude following his parents' deaths, having another person in the house brought a warmth he had not realized he missed. Olivia was intelligent and curious, asking questions about the cattle and horses, about the land and the challenges of ranching in this unforgiving climate. A week passed, then 2. No one came searching. Zachary made his usual trips into Circleville for supplies, keeping his ears open for any talk of a missing woman from Salt Lake City, but heard nothing. Either the search had not extended this far south, or Olivia's father was keeping the matter quiet to avoid scandal. It was during the 3rd week that things began to shift between them in subtle ways. Zachary found himself looking forward to returning to the house each evening, not just for the good food, but for the conversation, for the sound of Olivia's laughter when he told stories about ornery cattle or stubborn horses. He noticed small things about her, the way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear when she was concentrating, the unconscious grace with which she moved, the kindness she showed to even the smallest creatures on the ranch. Olivia, for her part, found herself watching Zachary as he worked, admiring his quiet strength, his patience with the animals, the way he seemed so completely at ease in this rugged landscape. He was nothing like the men she had known in Salt Lake City with their fine clothes and the empty conversations. Zachary was real, solid, genuine in a way that made her feel safe for the first time in months. One evening in early August, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set over the distant mountains, Olivia broke the comfortable silence between them. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. Zachary, who had been whittling a piece of wood, looked up. "Sure." "Why have you never married? You are a good man with your own land. Surely there are women in Circleville who would jump at the chance." He smiled slightly, returning his attention to the wood in his hands. "I suppose I have been too busy building this place to think much about courting. After my parents died, keeping the ranch going took everything I had. There was not time for much else. Do you get lonely?" The question was simple, but struck at something deep. Zachary set down his whittling and looked out at the darkening landscape. "Yes," he admitted, "more than I like to admit, even to myself. This is beautiful country, but it can be harsh and isolating. There are days when the only voices I hear are my own and the cattle." "And now?" Olivia asked softly. He turned to look at her, and something in his expression made her heart skip. "Now it is different, better. The house feels like a home again, instead of just a place to sleep between work." Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks that had nothing to do with the summer evening. "I am glad. You have given me so much, Zachary. A refuge when I desperately needed one. Purpose when I felt completely lost. I want you to know how much that means to me." "You have given me something too," he said quietly. "You have reminded me that there is more to life than just surviving, that sometimes taking a risk on trust can lead to something worthwhile." They held each other's gaze for a long moment, and Olivia felt something shift in the air between them, an acknowledgement of feelings neither had voiced, but both were beginning to feel. Then Zachary cleared his throat and returned to his whittling, and the moment passed, though its effects lingered like the warmth of the setting sun. The next morning, Olivia was in the garden pulling weeds when she heard the sound of approaching horses. Her heart seized with fear, and she looked up to see Zachary emerging from the barn, his expression alert. He caught sight of her panicked face and held up a hand in a calming gesture. "Go inside," he said quietly but firmly. "Stay away from the windows." Olivia did not hesitate. She gathered her skirts and hurried into the house, her heart pounding. Through a crack in the curtains, she watched as two men on horseback rode into the yard. They were well dressed for travelers, and even from a distance she could see they carried themselves with authority. Zachary walked out to meet them, his posture relaxed, but his hands loose at his sides. "Gentlemen," he called out in greeting, "can I help you?" The older of the two men, a portly fellow with graying whiskers, nodded. "Name is Joseph Hardy. This here is my associate, Mr. Turner. We are looking for someone, a young woman who went missing from Salt Lake City about 3 weeks back. Been riding through all the settlements south of there, asking questions. You would not happen to have seen anyone matching that description, would you?" Olivia's blood ran cold. She pressed herself against the wall, hardly daring to breathe. "What does she look like?" Zachary asked, his tone casual. "Mid-20s, auburn hair, green eyes. Likely traveling alone and on foot by now, as her horse was found abandoned north of here." "Sorry, cannot help you," Zachary said. "I run this place by myself, and I have not seen any strangers passing through. You might try asking in town. More folks there who might have noticed someone." Hardy studied Zachary for a long moment, and Olivia could feel her pulse thundering in her ears. Finally, the man nodded. "We will do that. There is a reward for information leading to her return. $500. That is a lot of money for a working man." "It is," Zachary agreed. "But like I said, I have not seen anyone. Good luck with your search." The two men exchanged glances, then turned their horses and rode back down the path toward town. Zachary stood watching until they were out of sight, then turned and walked quickly to the house. Olivia met him at the door, her face pale. "They found my horse," she whispered. "They know I came this direction." Zachary placed his hands on her shoulders, steadying her. "Breathe. They do not know you are here. I told them nothing." $500, Zachary. That is a fortune. You could have told them, and been set for years." Her eyes searched his face. "Why did you protect me?" He looked at her for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "Because $500 is not worth betraying someone I have come to care about. Because sending you back to a life you do not want would make me no better than the people forcing you into it." Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks. "I have brought you nothing but trouble." "You have brought me nothing but light," he corrected gently. "But we need to be more careful now. They will be watching the roads, asking questions in town. We need to keep you completely out of sight for a while." Olivia nodded. wiping at her tears. "I am sorry for all of this." "Stop apologizing. You have done nothing wrong except refuse to be sold like property." His hands were still on her shoulders, and he seemed to suddenly realize it, dropping them awkwardly. "We will figure this out, I promise." The days that followed were tense. Zachary made a trip into Circleville and returned with news that Hardy and Turner had been asking questions at the general store and the saloon, but no one had any information to give them. The men had moved on to the next settlement south after 2 days, but the knowledge that they were actively searching made Olivia nervous. She stayed close to the house, never venturing far from cover. Zachary taught her to shoot his rifle, reasoning that if trouble came while he was working the far pastures, she needed to be able to defend herself. Olivia proved to be a quick study, her hands steady once she overcame her initial fear of the weapon. "You are a natural," Zachary said, after she hit her target 3 times in a row. "Where did you learn to focus like that?" "My mother taught me embroidery when I was young," Olivia said, lowering the rifle. "She always said that the key was to clear your mind of everything except the needle and the thread, to see nothing but the precise point where you needed to be. I suppose shooting is not so different. I never thought of it that way, but you're right." He took the rifle from her and reloaded it. "Though I hope you never have to use this skill for real. So do I." As August faded into September, the heat of summer began to ease into the cooler temperatures of early fall. The garden Olivia had nurtured yielded a bounty of vegetables, and they spent long evenings preserving food for the winter ahead. Working side by side, they fell into an easy rhythm, their conversations ranging from the practical to the philosophical. One night, as they sat peeling potatoes by lamplight, Olivia asked, "Do you ever think about leaving here, going somewhere else?" Zachary considered the question. "Sometimes, but this land is in my blood now. My father brought us here when I was just a boy, carved this ranch out of nothing with his own 2 hands. When he and my mother died of fever 5 years back, I thought about selling and heading back east. But I realized that this place is not just land and buildings. It is their legacy, their dreams made real. Leaving would feel like abandoning them." "That is beautiful," Olivia said softly. "To feel that kind of connection to a place, to a purpose. Did you not feel that way about anything in Salt Lake City?" She shook her head. "My life there was all about appearances and expectations. I attended the right parties, wore the right dresses, said the right things. But none of it felt real. None of it felt like mine." She paused, her hands stilling in their work. "These past weeks here, even with the fear and uncertainty, I have felt more alive and more myself than I have in years. Is that strange?" "No," Zachary said, and his voice carried a warmth that made her look up. "I understand exactly what you mean. Having you here has awakened something in me I did not even know was sleeping. This ranch feels different now, richer, more complete." Their eyes met across the table, and the air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken words. Slowly, Zachary reached across and covered her hand with his own, his calloused palm warm against her fingers. Olivia's breath caught, but she did not pull away. "Olivia," he said quietly, "I know your situation is complicated. I know you are still technically engaged to another man, even if it is against your will. But I need you to know that somewhere along the way these past weeks, my feelings for you have become more than just wanting to help someone in need." Her heart was racing now, her hand turning in his to intertwine their fingers. "Zachary, I feel the same way. Being here with you, seeing the way you work, the way you treat everything and everyone with such respect and care, I have fallen for you in a way I did not think was possible. What I feel for you is so different from anything I ever felt in my old life. This is real." He stood slowly, drawing her up with him, and they stood facing each other in the lamplight. Zachary raised his free hand to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear she had not realized she had shed. "I want to do this properly," he said. "I want to court you the right way, not take advantage of your situation. But I also need you to know that I am falling in love with you, Olivia Durant, and if you will have me, I want to find a way for us to build a life together." Olivia let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and then she was reaching up to pull him down to her, and they were kissing with all the pent-up emotion and longing of the past weeks. It was gentle and fierce at the same time, a meeting of 2 souls who had found in each other something they had not known they were searching for. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Olivia rested her forehead against his chest. "I love you too," she whispered. "I think I started falling for you that first night when you showed me kindness without asking anything in return. And every day since has only made it deeper." Zachary held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the rightness of her in his arms. "We will figure out the rest," he promised. "Your father, Pemberton, all of it. We will find a way." They stood there holding each other for a long time, the potatoes forgotten on the table, the lamp burning low. Outside, the September wind whispered through the cottonwoods, and somewhere in the distance a coyote called to the rising moon. It was a moment of perfect peace in the midst of uncertainty, a promise of something beautiful growing in the midst of hardship. The next morning brought both joy and terror in equal measure. Zachary and Olivia were sharing breakfast, still glowing with the newness of their acknowledged feelings when they heard horses approaching once again. This time there were more of them, at least 4 or 5 from the sound. Olivia's face drained of color. "Zachary, hide," he said urgently. "The bedroom, the closet, get out of sight now." She ran as he moved to the door, checking his revolver before stepping outside. What he saw made his jaw tighten. 5 men on horseback were riding into his yard, and leading them was a tall, silver-haired man in expensive traveling clothes. Behind him rode Hardy and Turner, the men who had come asking questions before, along with 2 others who had the look of hired guns. The silver-haired man dismounted smoothly and approached Zachary with the confidence of someone used to getting his way. "Mr. Larson, I presume. I am Charles Durant. I believe you may have information about my daughter." Zachary kept his expression neutral. "Like I told those other gentlemen when they came by before, I have not seen anyone." Durant smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Mr. Larson, let us not play games. Hardy here has been making inquiries in town. It seems that over the past month, you have been purchasing more food than usual for a man living alone. Flour, sugar, fabric. Interesting purchases for a bachelor rancher." Zachary's mind raced. "I stock up for winter. It is common sense." "Perhaps, but I am a man who trusts his instincts, and my instincts tell me that my daughter is here." Durant's eyes were hard as flint. "She is engaged to be married, Mr. Larson. That engagement represents important business and social connections. I need her back, and I am prepared to offer you $750 for her safe return." "And if I told you to get off my property?" One of the hired guns shifted in his saddle, his hand moving toward his weapon. Durant held up a hand to stop him. "I would very much like to avoid unpleasantness. You seem like a reasonable man. Surely you understand that a father has the right to protect his daughter from making foolish decisions. Olivia is young and impulsive. She does not understand what is best for her. Or maybe she understands perfectly, and you do not like her answer," Zachary said flatly. Durant's expression hardened. "Search the property," he ordered his men. The hired guns dismounted and moved toward the house. Zachary stepped into their path, his hand on his gun. "You do not have the right." "I have the right of a father looking for his child," Durant said coldly. "Move aside, or we will move you." For a tense moment, it seemed violence was inevitable. Then the door to the house opened, and Olivia stepped out onto the porch. She was pale but composed, her chin lifted with dignity. "Stop this," she said clearly. "I am here of my own free will. Mr. Larson has been a perfect gentleman and has done nothing wrong. If you want me, father, here I am, but I will not be dragged back like some runaway animal." Durant's face showed relief and anger in equal measure. "Olivia, thank God. We have been searching everywhere for you. What possessed you to run off like this? You have caused your mother and me incredible worry." "I ran because you were forcing me into a marriage I do not want with a man I do not love," Olivia said, her voice shaking but strong. "I tried to tell you, tried to make you understand, but you would not listen. You care more about business connections than about my happiness." "This is not about happiness. It is about security and position," Durant argued. "Marcus Pemberton can give you a life of comfort and social standing. What can a rancher in the middle of nowhere offer you? Hard work and isolation." "He offers me respect," Olivia shot back. "He offers me choice. He offers me love, which is more than Marcus ever has or ever will." Durant's eyes narrowed as he looked between his daughter and Zachary. "You have been here a month. Are you telling me that you have developed feelings for this man in such a short time? Or has he taken advantage of you?" "How dare you?" Olivia said, her voice rising with anger. "Zachary has been nothing but honorable. He gave me shelter when I needed it, asked nothing in return, and protected me when he could have easily collected your reward. He is more of a gentleman than anyone in your social circles." "Olivia, be reasonable," Durant said, his tone shifting to something approaching pleading. "You have a life in Salt Lake City, friends, family, opportunities. What kind of future is there for you here?" "The future I choose for myself," Olivia said. "I am 23 years old, Father. I am not a child. I have the right to decide my own path. You are my daughter, and you are engaged. That contract binds you." "A contract I did not agree to," Olivia countered. "You and Marcus arranged it without my consent. That makes it invalid." Durant's face flushed with anger. "You will come back with me now, and we will discuss this properly at home." "No," Olivia said simply. "I will not." "Then you leave me no choice." Durant nodded to his men. "Take her." The two hired guns moved toward the porch, but Zachary stepped between them and Olivia, his gun drawn. "That would be a mistake," he said quietly, but there was steel in his voice. The men hesitated, looking to Durant for direction. The older man's face was red with fury and frustration. "You would draw on us over a woman you have known for a few weeks? Is she really worth dying for?" "Yes," Zachary said without hesitation, "and I think you will find that forcing a grown woman to go somewhere against her will is kidnapping, which is a crime. I am within my rights to defend someone on my property from such an act." Durant stared at him for a long moment, then at his daughter. Some of the fire seemed to go out of him, replaced by something that might have been sadness. "Olivia, please, your mother is heartbroken. Can you not at least come home to talk to her, to explain?" Olivia felt tears prick her eyes, but she did not waver. "I will write to her. I will explain everything. But I will not come back to be pressured and manipulated into a life I do not want. I am sorry, Father, but this is my decision." For a moment, Charles Durant looked every one of his 50-some years, the weight of disappointment and defeated plans aging him before their eyes. Then his expression hardened once more into anger. "Very well. If this is your choice, then you make it with full understanding of the consequences. You will be cut off from your family. Your inheritance will go to your brother. Your name will be removed from our social circles. You will be dead to us." The words hit Olivia like physical blows, but she held her ground. "If that is the price of my freedom, then I pay it." Durant mounted his horse in one swift motion. "You are making a terrible mistake. When this infatuation fades and you are left with nothing but hard work and poverty, do not come crawling back. There will be no place for you." He wheeled his horse around and rode off, his men following. Hardy and Turner looked back once with something like pity in their eyes. Then they too were gone, leaving a cloud of dust in their wake. Olivia's legs gave out, and she sat down hard on the porch step, trembling violently. Zachary holstered his gun and knelt beside her, pulling her into his arms as she finally allowed herself to break down, sobbing against his chest. "I am sorry," he murmured into her hair. "I am so sorry you had to go through that." "He meant it," she gasped between sobs. "He will really cut me off. My mother, my brother, everyone. They will all be forbidden from contacting me. I know, and that is his choice, just as staying here is yours. But you will not be alone, Olivia. You will never be alone, as long as I am here." She clung to him, crying until she had no tears left, while Zachary held her and let her grieve for the family she had lost in choosing her own path. When she finally calmed, her eyes were red and swollen, but there was also a kind of peace in her expression, the peace of a decision made and held to despite the cost. "I do not regret it," she said quietly. "I am heartbroken, but I do not regret choosing you, choosing this life." "Are you sure?" Zachary asked seriously. "Because if you have any doubts, if you want to go back, I will understand. I will hate it, but I will understand." Olivia reached up and cupped his face in her hands. "I have never been more sure of anything. I love you, Zachary Larson. I want to build a life here with you, whatever that looks like. I want to wake up in this house every morning and work beside you every day. I want to be your partner in all things." He kissed her then, deeply and thoroughly, pouring all his love and commitment into that kiss. When they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "Then marry me, properly, legally, so that no one can ever claim you owe allegiance to anyone else. Be my wife, Olivia." "Yes," she breathed. "Yes, absolutely yes." They held each other on that porch for a long time, the September sun climbing higher in the sky, the sounds of the ranch surrounding them. It was a moment of profound change, of one chapter ending and another beginning, of a choice made that would shape the rest of their lives. The wedding took place 2 weeks later in the small church in Circleville, with the minister and his wife serving as witnesses. Olivia wore a simple blue dress that she had sewn herself from fabric Zachary bought in town, and she carried wildflowers that Zachary had picked from the meadow that morning. It was nothing like the elaborate ceremony her father had planned for her marriage to Marcus Pemberton, and it was perfect. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Zachary kissed her with such tenderness that Mrs. Jensen, the minister's wife, actually dabbed at her eyes with her handkerchief. They signed the marriage certificate, making their union legal and binding, and then they rode back to the ranch together, Olivia sitting before Zachary on his horse, his arms around her waist. That night, they came together as husband and wife for the first time, their lovemaking a sweet and passionate affirmation of the commitment they had made. Afterward, lying tangled together in the bedroom that was now truly theirs, Olivia traced patterns on Zachary's chest and marveled at the turns her life had taken. "A few months ago, I thought my life was ending," she said softly. "I thought I was trapped with no way out. And now I am here, married to a man I love with all my heart, in a place that feels more like home than anywhere I have ever lived. It seems impossible." "Nothing about you is impossible," Zachary said, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "You are the strongest person I know, Olivia. You gave up everything for the chance at something real." "I gained everything," she corrected. "I lost money and social position and family, but I gained freedom and purpose and love. That seems like an excellent trade." As autumn deepened, they settled into their new life as husband and wife. Olivia proved to be an invaluable partner in running the ranch, learning to handle the account books, to help with the cattle when an extra hand was needed, to make decisions alongside Zachary about which stock to sell and which to keep. She was smart and capable, and Zachary found himself consulting her on all aspects of the ranch, trusting her judgment. In return, Zachary made sure that Olivia never felt trapped or confined. He taught her to ride better, took her on trips across the property to show her all its hidden beauties, encouraged her to pursue her interests. When she expressed a desire to start a small business selling preserved foods and baked goods to other ranches and families in the area, he helped her set it up and build a reputation. Their first winter together was harsh, with heavy snows that sometimes kept them housebound for days at a time. But those days became some of Olivia's favorites, spent reading together by the fire, talking for hours about everything and nothing, making love in the warm cocoon of their bed while the wind howled outside. She learned the rhythms of winter ranch work, of breaking ice on water troughs and making sure the cattle had enough feed, of the constant vigilance required to keep everything and everyone alive through the cold months. When spring came, bringing new life to the land, Olivia discovered she was carrying new life as well. She told Zachary one evening in April, after being certain for a few weeks, and the joy on his face was something she would treasure forever. "A baby," he breathed, his hand moving to rest gently on her still flat stomach. "Are you scared?" "Terrified," she admitted, "but also happier than I can express. We are going to be parents, Zachary. We are going to raise a child here, teach them to love this land and this life the way we do." He pulled her close, overwhelmed with emotion. "I promise you, I will be the best father I know how to be. Our child will grow up knowing they are loved and wanted, that they matter." "I know," Olivia said, tears of happiness streaming down her face. "I have never doubted that for a moment." The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the summer months. Olivia continued working as long as she was able, though Zachary became increasingly protective, insisting she rest more and avoid heavy labor. Mrs. Jensen from town came out regularly to check on her, bringing advice and supplies and kind words of encouragement. It was during one of these visits in late July, when Olivia was very obviously pregnant, that Mrs. Jensen brought unexpected news. "I heard something in town yesterday," she said carefully, watching Olivia's face. "Joseph Hardy, the man who was searching for you last year, he came through again last week. He told folks at the saloon that your father has called off the search completely. Apparently, Marcus Pemberton married someone else back in the spring, and your father has decided to let the whole matter drop." Olivia's hand went to her swollen belly, her emotions complicated. I see. Did Hardy say anything else? Just that your father wishes you well, wherever you are, and hopes you have found what you were looking for. Mrs. Jensen paused. He also said that your mother sends her love, though she has been forbidden from contacting you directly. Tears filled Olivia's eyes. Thank you for telling me. It is good to know that they are not still searching, that they have accepted my choice even if they have not forgiven it. After Mrs. Jensen left, Olivia sat on the porch for a long time, processing this information. When Zachary came in from the fields, she told him what she had learned. He sat beside her, taking her hand. How do you feel? He asked. Relieved, mostly, she said honestly, and a little sad. I miss my mother. I wish she could meet her grandchild, but I do not regret my choice, Zachary. I would make it again 1,000 times over. I know, he said gently, and maybe someday, when enough time has passed, there might be a chance at reconciliation. Your mother knows where you are now. If she wants to reach out, she can find a way. Maybe, Olivia agreed, though she did not let herself hope too much. For now, she had the family she had chosen, and that was enough. Their son was born in early October of 1884, during a golden autumn afternoon when the leaves of the cottonwoods were turning yellow and the air carried the first hint of coming winter. The labor was long and difficult, with Mrs. Jensen and a midwife from town attending, while Zachary paced the yard outside until he wore a track in the dirt. When Mrs. Jensen finally emerged to tell him he had a son and that Olivia was well, Zachary nearly collapsed with relief. He rushed inside to find his wife exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. When Olivia looked up at him, her face streaked with tears and sweat. She was smiling. Come meet your son, she said softly. Zachary approached slowly, almost afraid to breathe, and looked down at the impossibly small face of his child. The baby had a shock of dark hair and was making small mewling sounds, his tiny fists waving in the air. Something shifted in Zachary's chest, a feeling so profound and overwhelming that he had no words for it. He is perfect, he whispered. You are perfect. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you for this gift. They named him Thomas after Zachary's father, with the middle name Charles, a small olive branch toward Olivia's estranged family. Little Thomas proved to be a healthy, strong baby, with a good set of lungs and his mother's green eyes. He became the center of their world, and both Zachary and Olivia marveled at how completely he had changed their lives. Watching Zachary with their son filled Olivia's heart near to bursting. He was a natural father, patient and gentle, spending hours holding Thomas, talking to him, showing him the ranch and the animals. At night, when the baby fussed, Zachary would walk him around the house, singing off key lullabies that somehow always worked. As Thomas grew from infant to toddler, the ranch prospered. Word of Olivia's preserved goods had spread, and she had more orders than she could easily fill. Zachary's careful breeding program was producing excellent cattle, and his reputation as a fair and skilled rancher was bringing in business. They were not wealthy by Salt Lake City standards, but they were comfortable and secure, and that was more than enough. One spring day in 1886, when Thomas was a year and a half old and toddling around the yard with determined energy, a buggy appeared on the road to the ranch. Olivia, who was hanging laundry, froze when she recognized the style of the carriage, expensive and well-maintained. Her heart began to pound as it drew closer and finally stopped in the yard. An older woman stepped out, moving carefully, and when she turned, Olivia gasped. Mother? Margaret Durant looked older than Olivia remembered, her hair more gray than brown now, but her eyes were the same, and they filled with tears as she took in the sight of her daughter. Olivia, my dear girl. For a moment, neither moved, the weight of nearly 3 years of separation heavy between them. Then Olivia ran forward, and her mother met her halfway, and they were embracing and crying, both talking at once. I am so sorry, Margaret said. I have wanted to come for so long, but your father forbade it. But he is away on business in Denver, and I decided I could not wait any longer. I had to see you, had to know you were well. I am well, Mother. I am so well. Olivia pulled back, wiping at her tears. Come, there is someone you need to meet. She led her mother to where Thomas was playing in a small fenced area Zachary had built, chasing after a ball with gleeful determination. Margaret's breath caught. A grandson, oh, Olivia. His name is Thomas Charles. Olivia said softly. Thomas for Zachary's father, Charles for... She did not need to finish. Margaret covered her mouth with her hand, overcome with emotion. May I hold him? Of course. They spent the afternoon together, talking and catching up on years lost. Margaret met Zachary and was clearly impressed by his quiet dignity and obvious devotion to her daughter. She toured the ranch, saw how hard Olivia and Zachary had worked to build their life, and by the time she had to leave, there was understanding in her eyes, if not complete approval. Your father may never forgive this, she said as she prepared to depart. But I am glad you found happiness, Olivia. I can see that you made the right choice for yourself, even if it was not the choice we would have made for you. That means everything to me, Mother, Olivia said, holding her hands. Please come back when you can. I have missed you so much. I will, Margaret promised. And perhaps someday, when time has softened your father's heart, there may be a full reconciliation. Until then, know that you are loved and thought of often. After her mother left, Olivia stood in the yard with Zachary's arm around her waist, Thomas on her hip, and felt a profound sense of peace. Her family was fractured, but not completely broken. There was hope for healing, even if it took years. More years passed, bringing both joys and sorrows. They had a second child, a daughter they named Emily Margaret, born in the spring of 1888. 2 years later came another son, Henry, completing their family. The ranch continued to thrive, expanding as they bought adjacent land from a retiring neighbor. Thomas grew into a thoughtful, responsible boy who loved working alongside his father, while Emily inherited her mother's quick mind and business sense. Henry was the adventurous one, always getting into mischief and keeping everyone on their toes. Margaret visited twice more over the years, always when Charles was traveling, maintaining a secret connection with her daughter and grandchildren. It was not ideal, but it was something, and Olivia treasured those stolen hours. Then, in the spring of 1892, nearly 9 years after Olivia had fled Salt Lake City, an official-looking letter arrived. Olivia opened it with trembling hands, afraid of what it might contain. As she read, tears began to stream down her face. Zachary, who had been repairing a harness, immediately put it aside and went to her. What is it? What is wrong? My father, Olivia whispered. He died last month. Heart failure. This is from the family lawyer, informing me. She looked up at Zachary, her expression a complex mixture of grief and regret. He died thinking I was dead to him. We never had a chance to reconcile. Zachary pulled her into his arms, holding her as she wept for the father she had loved, despite everything, for the relationship that would never have a chance to heal. I am sorry, my love. So very sorry. The funeral had already taken place by the time they received the news, so there was no question of attending. But 2 weeks later, another letter arrived, this one from her brother. Olivia, it read, Father's will contained a surprise for all of us. Despite his claims that you were cut off, he left you a portion of the estate, not the full inheritance you would have received had you stayed, but enough to be significant. He also left a letter for you, which Mother is sending separately. It seems that despite everything, he never stopped thinking of you. Your brother, James. The letter from her father arrived 3 days later. Olivia held it for a long time before finding the courage to open it. When she finally did, she read it through tears. My dearest Olivia, it began. If you are reading this, then I have passed from this world without having the courage in life to say what I should have said long ago. I was wrong. Wrong to try to force you into a marriage you did not want. Wrong to cut you off when you chose your own path. Wrong to let pride keep me from reaching out to you all these years. Your mother has told me about her visits, about the life you have built, about my grandchildren I never met. She says you are happy, and that is all a father should truly want for his daughter. I hope you can forgive me for being too stubborn to see that while I still lived. Be well, my girl. Be happy. Know that you were loved, even when I was too foolish to show it properly. Your father. Olivia sat at the kitchen table and wept, mourning not just her father, but the years they had lost, the relationship they might have repaired if pride had not stood in the way. Zachary sat beside her, reading the letter over her shoulder, his own eyes damp. He loved you, he said quietly. He just did not know how to say it without admitting he was wrong. That is a failing in him, not in you. I know, Olivia said, but it still hurts. The inheritance, when it came, was substantial enough to make a real difference. They used part of it to make improvements to the ranch, to build a proper schoolroom for the children, to establish a savings that would ensure their family's security. But the true gift, Olivia knew, was her father's final words of love and regret, imperfect as they were. With her father gone, Margaret no longer had to hide her relationship with her daughter. She began visiting openly, staying for weeks at a time, delighting in her grandchildren and helping Olivia with the work of the ranch. James, Olivia's brother, also reached out, rebuilding a relationship with his sister. He brought his own family to visit, and the cousins played together while the adults talked about the years they had lost and the future they could build together. The children grew. Thomas, at 16, was nearly as tall as his father and just as skilled with cattle and horses. Emily, at 13, was already helping her mother with the ever-expanding food business and talking about perhaps opening a shop in town someday. Henry, at 11, was still the wild one, but his adventurous spirit was tempered now with increasing maturity. On a warm evening in June of 1897, Zachary and Olivia sat on their porch, watching the sun set over the mountains they had come to know so well. 14 years had passed since that night Zachary had found Olivia weeping in his barn. They were both older now, with strands of silver in their hair and the marks of hard work and good living on their faces. "Do you ever think about how different our lives might have been?" Olivia asked, her hand in his. "If I had not run, if you had not found me, if any number of things had gone differently." "Sometimes," Zachary admitted. "And then I look at what we have built together, and I cannot imagine any other life. This is exactly where I am meant to be. With you." Olivia leaned her head on his shoulder. "That night in the barn, when you found me, I was at my lowest point. I thought my life was over. I had no plan, no hope, just desperation. And then you showed me kindness without asking for anything in return. You gave me a place to rest, to think, to become myself. You saved me in every way a person can be saved." "You saved me too," Zachary said softly. "I was just going through the motions before you came, working myself to exhaustion to avoid feeling lonely. You brought life and light and love to this place. You made a house into a home, a ranch into a legacy. Everything good in my life comes from that choice I made to help a crying woman in my barn." They sat in comfortable silence, watching as their children emerged from the house. Thomas heading to check on a pregnant mare in the barn, Emily and Henry arguing good-naturedly about whose turn it was to feed the chickens. This was their life, built from nothing but determination and love, weathered by hardship but made stronger for it. "When I told you that it was warm where you sat," Zachary said after a while, "I had no idea how prophetic those words would be. You brought warmth to every corner of my life, Olivia. You still do." She turned to kiss him, still feeling that flutter in her heart that she had felt since the beginning. "And you gave me freedom and safety and a love I did not know existed. We are lucky, Zachary, so incredibly lucky." "Not lucky," he corrected gently. "Blessed. We found each other when we both needed finding, and we had the courage to hold on through all the storms. That is not luck. That is something much more profound." As the sun finally dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, they remained on the porch, hands intertwined, hearts full. In the barn, Thomas was singing to the horses as he worked, his voice strong and clear. In the yard, Emily and Henry had resolved their argument and were now racing to see who could finish their chores faster, their laughter ringing out across the ranch. In the house behind them, Margaret was preparing dinner, the smell of fresh bread drifting through the open windows. This was their happily ever after, not a fairy tale ending, but something better, something real and earned and deeply satisfying. A life built on a foundation of mutual respect, partnership, and love that had only grown deeper with each passing year. The ranch that had been Zachary's inheritance from his parents was now a thriving family operation. And someday it would pass to their children and their children's children, a legacy of hard work and love conquering all obstacles. Olivia thought about the girl she had been, crying in that barn, lost and afraid and desperate. She thought about the incredible journey from that moment to this one, all the challenges faced and overcome, all the joy and sorrow and growth. If she could go back and tell that frightened girl what the future held, she would say simply this: "It gets better. Love finds you when you need it most, and courage is rewarded, and sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most beautiful outcomes. I love you, she said to Zachary, the words still feeling fresh and vital even after 14 years of marriage. "I love you too," he replied, as he always did, and meant it with every fiber of his being. As night fell over the ranch in Circleville, Utah, the family gathered for dinner, talking and laughing around the sturdy table that had witnessed so many meals, so many conversations, so many moments both ordinary and extraordinary. This was their happy ending, but it was also their happy middle and their happy beginning, because true love stories do not really end. They continue on day after day, year after year, building something beautiful from the raw materials of commitment and care. That night, after the children were in bed and Margaret had retired to her room, Zachary and Olivia lay together in their bed, the windows open to let in the cool night breeze. The curtains fluttered gently, and from outside came the peaceful sounds of the ranch settling down for the night. "We should take the children to that new national park next summer," Olivia said sleepily. "Thomas read about it in one of his school books. Yellowstone, I think it is called." "That is a long journey," Zachary said, but there was interest in his voice. "But it could be good for them to see more of the world beyond Circleville." "Not too much more," Olivia said with a smile in her voice. "I have had enough adventuring for one lifetime. I am quite content right here." "As am I," Zachary agreed, pulling her closer. "As am I." They drifted off to sleep, wrapped in each other's arms, secure in the knowledge that whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them together, as they had faced everything since that fateful night in 1883. The ranch would need tending, the children would need guidance, life would continue in all its messy, beautiful complexity. But through it all, there would be love, the kind of love that sees someone weeping and offers comfort, the kind that asks nothing and gives everything, the kind that grows stronger through adversity rather than being broken by it, the kind that transforms two lonely souls into a family, a partnership, a love story for the ages. In the morning, the sun would rise over the mountains once again, painting the Utah landscape in gold and amber light. The cattle would need feeding, the horses would need tending, and 1,000 small tasks would require attention. Thomas would work beside his father in the fields, Emily would help her mother with the preserving, Henry would find some new mischief to get into, and Margaret would smile over her coffee and thank God for bringing her daughter back into her life, however indirectly. This was the life Olivia had chosen when she ran from Salt Lake City, the life she had built with Zachary Larson, the cowboy who found her weeping in his barn and offered her not just shelter, but hope. It was not always easy, was not always comfortable, but it was real and it was theirs, and that made it perfect. Years continued to pass in their gentle, relentless way. The children grew into adults, each forging their own paths while remaining connected to the ranch and to their parents. Thomas took over more and more of the daily operations, allowing Zachary to slow down a bit as age began to take its toll on his body, though never on his spirit. Emily did indeed open a shop in Circleville, selling preserves and baked goods and expanding into other household items, her business acumen making her quite successful. Henry, true to his adventurous nature, spent several years traveling the West before eventually returning home to settle down and start his own family on a portion of the ranch land. Margaret lived to see all 3 of her grandchildren married and to hold several of her great-grandchildren before she passed peacefully in her sleep at the age of 79, content in the knowledge that her daughter had found true happiness. James remained a faithful correspondent and visitor, the sibling bond repaired and strengthened by time. Zachary and Olivia grew old together, their love mellowing like good wine, becoming richer and deeper with age. They celebrated their 25th anniversary, their 30th, their 40th, each milestone a testament to the strength of what they had built together. They became grandparents many times over, their home always open and welcoming to the ever-expanding family. On warm summer evenings, they still sat on the porch, holding hands and watching the sunset over the mountains. They told stories to their grandchildren about the old days, about how Grandma Olivia came to the ranch, about building a life from nothing but love and hard work. The children listened with wide eyes, not quite believing that their refined, elegant grandmother had once been a runaway bride hiding in a barn. "Tell us again about when Grandpa found you crying," one of the grandchildren would inevitably ask. And Olivia would smile and tell the story, never tiring of it because it was the story of how her real life began. She would tell about running away, about being lost and afraid, about the kind cowboy who offered help without judgment. She would tell about the warmth of that barn, about Zachary's gentle words, about falling in love slowly and then all at once. And then Grandpa said something that I never forgot, she would say, her eyes finding Zachary's across the porch. He said, "Then it is warm where you sit." Such simple words, but they held so much kindness, so much humanity. In that moment, I knew I was safe. I knew that somehow, everything would be all right. The grandchildren would sigh with satisfaction, having heard the happy ending they expected, and would run off to play. And Zachary and Olivia would remain on the porch, hands still clasped, hearts still beating in rhythm, grateful for every single day they had been given together. When Zachary passed away peacefully at the age of 78, having lived a full and meaningful life, Olivia grieved deeply but not without gratitude. She had been given 52 years with the man she loved, 52 years of partnership and passion and profound connection. That was more than many people ever got, and she treasured every memory. She lived for another 7 years, surrounded by children and grandchildren and even a few great-grandchildren, the matriarch of a family that spanned 3 generations and countless stories. She remained sharp and engaged until the very end, still managing her business accounts, still offering advice and wisdom to anyone who asked. On a warm June evening, not unlike that evening so many years ago when she had first met Zachary, Olivia sat on the porch with her oldest grandson, Thomas's son Zachary, named for his grandfather. She was 85 years old, and she knew without being told that her time was drawing to a close. She could feel it in the heaviness of her body, in the way her heart sometimes skipped and fluttered. "Tell me about Grandpa," young Zachary said, sensing perhaps that this might be one of the last chances he had to hear the stories firsthand. Olivia smiled, her eyes distant with memory. "Your grandfather was the finest man I ever knew," she said softly. "He was strong without being harsh, confident without being arrogant, capable of tremendous kindness without expecting anything in return. He saved my life, not just that first night, but every day after, just by being exactly who he was. Do you miss him?" "Every moment of every day," Olivia said honestly. "But I also carry him with me always, in my memories, in my heart, in every piece of this ranch that we built together. He is not really gone, you see. Not as long as we remember him, not as long as this land endures." That night, Olivia went to sleep in the bed she had shared with Zachary for so many years, and she did not wake up. She passed peacefully, a small smile on her face, as if she were seeing something beautiful in her dreams. Perhaps she was dreaming of a young cowboy finding a crying girl in a barn. Perhaps she was dreaming of a life well lived, of love found and cherished and honored. Perhaps she was dreaming of being reunited with the man who had been her partner, her best friend, her great love. The family buried her next to Zachary on a hill overlooking the ranch, where the cottonwoods whispered in the breeze and the mountains stood eternal in the distance. Her gravestone was simple. Olivia Durant Larson, beloved wife, mother, grandmother, she chose love. And in choosing love, she had found everything she never knew she needed. She had found freedom and purpose and joy. She had found a life worth living, a love worth fighting for, a legacy worth leaving behind. The ranch continued on, past to Thomas and his children, and their children after them. The story of how it all began, of the weeping woman and the kind cowboy, became family legend, told and retold with each generation. The words, "Then it is warm where you sit," became a family saying, a reminder to show kindness to strangers, to help those in need, to never underestimate the power of a single moment of compassion. Years turned into decades, decades into centuries, and still the land endured, still the family thrived, all because one night in 1883, a cowboy named Zachary Larson heard someone crying in his barn and chose kindness over suspicion, generosity over caution, love over fear. It was a simple choice, really, but then again, the most important choices often are. And from that simple choice grew a love story that would last beyond their lifetimes, a testament to the transformative power of compassion, courage, and commitment. In the end, that is what matters most. Not wealth or status or social position, but the connections we forge, the love we give and receive, the lives we touch by simply being present and open and kind. Olivia and Zachary understood that from the very beginning, and they built a life upon that foundation that withstood every storm and celebrated every joy. Their story serves as a reminder that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places, that sometimes running away is really running towards something better, that sometimes the greatest courage is in choosing your own path, even when it means leaving everything familiar behind, and that sometimes, when you are at your lowest point, crying and lost and afraid, salvation comes in the form of a kind stranger who says just the right thing at just the right time. Then it is warm where you sit. 5 simple words that changed everything. 5 simple words that offered comfort and kindness without judgment or expectation. 5 simple words that began a love story for the ages. And so the tale ends, as all tales must, but the love continues on, passed down through generations, living in the land and the family and the memories of those who heard the story and took its lessons to heart. Love is not always easy, the story teaches. It requires courage and sacrifice and hard work. But when it is real, when it is true, it is worth everything. It transforms, it endures, it conquers all. Olivia Durant Larson and Zachary Larson proved the truth every day of their lives together, from that first night in the barn to their final days decades later. They lived and loved with integrity and passion, building something beautiful from the ashes of a life Olivia had rejected and the loneliness Zachary had endured. Together they were greater than the sum of their parts, a perfect partnership forged in adversity and strengthened by devotion. Their happily ever after was not a fairy tale. It was something better, something real, something earned through choice and effort and unwavering commitment. It was a life filled with laughter and tears, triumphs and setbacks, ordinary moments and extraordinary ones. It was a love that grew deeper with every passing year, a connection that death itself could not truly sever. And it all began with a woman weeping in a barn and a cowboy who chose kindness, who offered shelter and safety, who spoke words of gentle comfort that opened the door to forever. This is their story, complete and whole, a testament to love's enduring power and a reminder that the best things in life often come from the simplest acts of human decency. May it inspire others to choose kindness, to take chances on love, to believe that even in our darkest moments, light can break through in the most unexpected ways. The end.